anytime I had created curriculum in that way, that was like the slides and the recording, all that, I was the bottleneck. I didn't want to record them. I wasn't skilled enough to record with the slides. So I had to record it, then do the slides, and then edit the slides to switch at the appropriate moment, because I couldn't switch to the appropriate moment because I can't multitask in that way. And it was just like a lot. Whereas like I had been podcasting for years. Like it's not a lot of work for me. Like this little mic just like stays plugged in all the time and I speak into it. And it's so simple and so easy.
Welcome back to another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast. We have a case study for you today, and this is a nice big one. Some of them are big and some of them are very like micro, like we're going on like zeroing on a big, tactic or something like that. But Kaitlyn's episode is going to be a lot about kind of the structure of her business. And Nora and I are excited to hear some of the changes that she made to her company that involve audio and private podcasting. So our guest today is Kaitlyn Kessler, and she's an energetics and business coach for high achieving visionaries. Welcome, Kaitlyn. It's nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to chat all things audio.
All things audio, right? That should be our tagline. That's a good one.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Nice. So all things audio with Kaitlyn. Love it. Kaitlyn, tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah. So I started this business in 2019, but I've been in the online space since 2015. I started the coaching business back in 2019 and really started with seeing a need from my first business of people who were just like really overworked, doing the most, super stressed out.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's weird.
and yeah, it was kind of a common phenomenon. And I really wanted to help people like do less, take a deep breath, find a way to be in business that actually felt good. And, it sort of evolved and grown over the years. But at the end of the day, I'm really just helping people come to terms with how do they want their business to look and feel, and like bringing that to life, making that a reality. And it typically involves working a little less hard, a little less stress, a little less pressure, a little less overwhelm. And that ends up helping them grow their impact and their income in all these really beautiful ways that actually feel good and sustainable.
Yay. Love that.
Yeah.
I love talking with these people. They're very, these people, Kaitlyn. No, but like the folks that are like into the simplifying business and the energy that they bring to these calls, like I'm super like right up here right now, but like Kaitlyn's like, but like, I love these conversations because I can see in my head, okay, yeah, I know how she got here. Right. And so that's our next question is, how did you find out about private podcasting? And yeah, what was your thought process behind that? And what were your ahas?
Yeah. So I actually can't remember the first time I like saw someone doing it. It might've been Andrea Crowder. It might've been someone else, but I knew of it as a concept at some point in the last, whatever it was, maybe 3-4 years. And I'd had a podcast publicly since 2018. And so I was used to the idea of having a microphone and talking into it and people listening to it. Like that all felt comfortable for me. And while my business is primarily focused more on like one-on-one coaching, masterminding, like things like that, I did want to have programs available to people to like kind of supplement and support the work that we were doing, because I was noticing some themes coming up. I was noticing some like, we're having the same kind of conversation over and over again. Like I could create something that would help you with this. And a lot of my work is more energetic, more subconscious, things that I can kind of record, different activations or different techniques or different modalities, and people can listen to them on their own time. And so I did my first audio course. I wish I should have looked up like the actual years on this. I think it was maybe 2020, 2021. And it was really just for my clients. Like I didn't do like a big launch or anything like that. I was just like, here's just some supplemental material. And they loved it. And I continued to create programs in the kind of more typical way from that point on. But that program always like really sat with me. It's like, that was so cool. That was so cool how I did it. It was so like effective. Like I just really liked that people could just listen to it on the go. And it kind of fit the modalities that I was using in the program. You didn't need slides or anything like that to really drive any points home. It was really about almost like meditation. It really was about like listening. As my business has grown and evolved, I realized that was a really sweet spot for me. And so last year I was on a mission to create more of that type of work. I kind of had a personal goal of like, I'm going to create more programs. Like I wanted to really perfect how I launched and things like that. And I stuck to audio for most of them, and then later converted the ones that weren't audio to audio, because it just felt so good to create in that way. And feedback that I was getting was just like, this is so simple. This is so easy. I can listen on the go. And that fits the ethos of like what I'm all about. I don't want you strapped to your computer having to watch videos of me. I want you to be on a walk. I want you to be out living your life and can tune in as you need it. And so it just really felt like congruent to create in this way.
Now, I like this, and it makes total sense why you ended up with audio, because for all those reasons, because we say those things like we're like, it's simple, it's easy, it's just so much faster to create. It's, no slides, no videos, like no hair and makeup, like all the things. And I know that we're going to have people listening that have a traditional course platform, right? There's all the course platforms, and they've created assets that they have hosted there. And we have absolutely had people in the Hello Audio community have that epiphany of, wait a minute, could this replace that? Is there a world where that actually could work? And the reality is, yes, that can work. And it sounds like all of the folks that, especially, and it makes sense with your community, because obviously they're in your community and your ecosystem, because they also believe that they don't want overcomplicated businesses. They don't want additional friction. They don't want stress. So it makes sense that you're meeting them with a delivery mechanism that also allows them to experience that, not only like on the consumer side, as you teach them how to experience that on the business owner and creator side. So it sounds like they really appreciated that switch, because you did invest, you did have an LMS.
Yeah.
And you had things hosted on there. And since then, it sounds like you kind of moved away from that traditional like login and all that kind of stuff. And now you're delivering with audio only, and no issues with students or clients.
Really positive feedback. And I think, to your point, because so much of what I talk about with my clients is simplifying and finding the path that feels kind of like easiest and all those sorts of things, I'm big on like, just to get a little woo about it, like energetics, here we go. But like, I'm big on embodiment. I'm big on like walking your talk. I'm big on like, are the things that you care about, your values, is that bleeding through into every aspect of your business? And this is an example of it for me. And I think when my clients see that, they're like, it really is like a permission slip for them in whatever their version of that is to do it, to be like, okay, like she talks about simplification, she talks about ease, she's doing it. What's my values? What are the things I care about? What are the things that I care about? And how can I bring that into every aspect of my business, including program delivery, course delivery, et cetera. But yeah, I've completely moved over, canceled all my subscriptions at the start of this year. It was like a big, like that was like my, my end date for me. I was like, I got to get this all updated, because like we're not starting the year with all this extra stuff. And so it's felt really, really nice to be fully audio now.
That's awesome. I think it's important too. I want to highlight something, because a lot of times in this online, business space, and I would even argue, because I came from corporate, and corporate, like it's not about how you feel. It's about like the work, right? Like no one ever says, maybe you should just reflect on how this feels for you. They're like, we don't really care. Let's just get this done, right? And I think it's an important piece of like you choosing the delivery mechanism of audio, and really and I know there are folks that are listening to this that have probably experienced the marketing of like hustle more and work harder, and it's like the grind and that kind of stuff. A lot of times we buy into that concept it has to be, that way, or maybe said a different way, it has to be slides, and that traditional way is like the only way to do it, or that's the only way to be successful, or the only way that works. And clearly that's not true. So I love that you chose audio as an expression of your ethos and your values, and not demonstrating that. Now I'm curious, and I assume like your clients are also growing businesses, they're business owners and probably different niches and different industries. Yeah. And so are you educating them on using private podcasts in their businesses?
Yeah. So it's not like something that I have like a course on, setting it up or anything like that, but it is a very common question. It is a thing that I get a lot of feedback on, as far as like, this was just easy to use, or I really love this. I love how, there's not this extra fluff or extra like hurdle or extra step I have to go through. And I think there's a general intrigue in my world of like moving towards that in their own ways. And so there is a lot of conversations around, I could see myself doing something like this. And I've had a couple of clients who have gone on to create their accounts and to do their own programs in that way. And, as far as I know, like it's been really successful for them too. It's been really wonderful for them too. And also it's really easy from like the creator standpoint. A lot of my clients kind of like run the gamut. I have a lot of the people who are, like I said, the overachievers, kind of type A, like that world. But I also have attracted more and more people who are more interested in kind of the energetics and like that kind of stuff too. And so their work is meditations and things that are more like audio based. And so they're really finding that this supports them better. Like, why do I need to log into something and watch a video of like a B-roll of a beach when I'm listening to something with my eyes closed, like that just doesn't fit. The function doesn't meet the format doesn't meet the function, something like that. And so they're finding that it's just a better support for the type of work that they're doing in the world.
That's really cool.
That's
and
cool.
it sounds like you also, in addition to delivering your content in audio, you also used it as a lead magnet. Was that like the second way that you used private podcasts? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So at the end of last year, in preparation for a launch that I did at the beginning of the year, I made a new lead magnet, and it was because I knew the program was going to be all audio based. I figured, let's just start this journey. Let's get used to this way of working. Let's get used to hearing me in your ears. I do get that feedback a lot, that people could like hear me, like they hear my voice, because they do hear my voice all the time, which I think is kind of fun. But I figured like, let's just keep it where it's like a seamless sort of experience from the user. He used the same sort of like intro music between the program and the freebie. So it kind of felt like really connected. And that went really, really, really well. I think we passed our sign up goal. I think like in the month for December, my goal, like we passed it with like within 3 weeks. And I was just like really satisfied with that and really excited, because I do think that, for the length of my business since I've had a public podcast, I've known that the podcast is a really great place to be nurtured. I know that's how it fits into my business kind of ecosystem, that people feel really connected with me when they can hear my voice, when it's like we're in a conversation. So I was really excited to see that work so well, because I knew it was really building that kind of relationship and things that will serve my business for a long time to come.
That's really cool. Did you run, I'm curious, only because we get asked this question, I feel like every week, with your lead magnet, did you run organic and paid traffic, or just organic?
Just organic, because it was new. I wanted to like see how it went. Yeah, see if it went well. And it did. So that might be something that we do in the future, like the next round.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of last year, I think ads were also a little, I don't know, cattywampus or like a little weird anyway. But yeah, always testing with organic, like with that makes sense. Now, I assume, do you plug it on your public podcast as well? Like in the show notes or an ad?
Yeah. So on my public podcast, I typically am using that to promote whatever is current. So there are some episodes that we're promoting that freebie. And then if I'm not necessarily promoting anything, like if there's not like a launch happening in the moment, like I'll default to promoting kind of the freebie. It's just like the ongoing thing that I always have available.
That's really cool and super smart to keep that. It's almost like the congruency of the conversation and the medium. So they're used to hearing you, and it's all throughout your customer journey, right? Like how they are meeting you and how we're starting the conversation, how you're nurturing them on the public podcast, and then, you're delivering for them as a client. So it's just a very cohesive customer or client experience.
Yeah. And I really enjoy that kind of like, that like tickles my fancy. Like I really like that stuff. Like I like when the puzzle pieces like fit together and make sense in that way. So it excites me to see like that whole sort of flow and ecosystem working in that way.
I bet the people you attract like that too.
Yeah, we're all like puzzlers and things like Scrabble and things. So
totally.
Yeah, we get excited about that.
I have a question about the switch leaving the learning management system. What were you thinking? So like it aligns with your values. As a business owner, a lot of times that helps us make decisions and move quickly, right? So there might be someone who maybe they don't teach that and they're just like, oh, like moving seems like a lot of work, but I see the advantage. So I'm curious, like, what was your thought process behind it? If you could take us back to psychologically, like what you were thinking about and like what were you worried about? Because I have a feeling you might have had some fears around it and you might still. But what were you thinking? Take us back to making that decision to move everything.
Yeah. So I think obviously like the whole congruence piece and all that was like a big part. And then quite logically, quite practically, I was thinking like business owner expenses, like I was paying for both. Which one did I want to continue to pay for? And I also was thinking like, I guess I kind of already said this, but just kind of like rehash it in a slightly different way. Like what's actually necessary? Like I'm big on, I'm a Virgo moon. If anyone listening to this is like into that, like I'm really into refinement. I'm really into like simplification. I'm really into less but better. And so I was like, is this necessary? And I guess I'll speak to something that's a little bit of a tangent, but you'll see why I'm connecting it. Anytime I had created curriculum in that way, that was like the slides and the recording, all that, I was the bottleneck. I did not want to do it. I didn't want to make the
100%.
slides. I didn't want to record them. I wasn't skilled enough to record with the slides. So I had to record it, then do the slides, and then edit the slides to switch at the appropriate moment because I couldn't switch at the appropriate moment because I can't multitask in that way. And it was just like a lot. And I was like, I want to create more of these types of things. It's so much work. Whereas like I had been podcasting for years. Like it's not a lot of work for me. This little mic just like stays plugged in all the time and I speak into it. My partner learned how to edit podcasts and like for me as a way to like propel me to do it back in 2018. It takes him 10 minutes to like, I don't know, make it not sound crappy. And then it's ready. And it's so simple and so easy. And so I was thinking like, am I going to continue to pay for this thing that I don't even really like using that isn't actually supportive to my process, let alone my client experience? And all of that sort of weighed into like the final decision. I think some maybe like fears that came up or worries that came up or concerns was like, would people be annoyed at like the practicality of switching over? I got no negative response from that. So I guess if that is someone's hesitation or fear, like here's a story of no one cared. Everyone was like, that's fine. It was no big deal. It's not like it's hard to get the feed set up. Like it's one email, they click a thing, it's like done. Like it's not a complicated process. They don't even have to make a login. It would be harder to do the switch the other way, actually, from a user perspective. And maybe a hesitation around like some of the little nuances with like, well, this program had a workbook before. Where will that go? But those are all really easy fixes because you can just link things in the show notes and they're clickable links, and that's fine. And a lot of my programs at this point have evolved to include some kind of like Notion dashboard or something like that anyway. And so that's linked in the show notes and it's linked in the onboarding email, and that's fine. And so it's like all the hesitations were like easily answered.
As objections can tend to be, right?
Yeah.
What are the stories we want to tell ourselves to make it harder?
Yeah.
So that's funny. I love that. And I think you outlined a lot of things that people are thinking about. There's one other one that I'm curious if you heard anybody say this or if it's a thought that popped in your head at all, not to project this onto you, but did you have anyone say anything like around pricing or anything like that? I think there's like some sort of value, like expectation, or maybe I should flip that. There's more an expectation of what a course should look like.
Oh, okay.
And so like if a course is $2,000 and we didn't talk about anything about your pricing or anything, but like, is it supposed to look a certain way? Is it supposed to have all the things?
Yeah.
And like, did you as a business owner worry about delivering anything like that felt, oh, I'm really scaling back on what I'm giving them?
Yeah. Well,
they pricing stuff around that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So no, but let me be honest. I think 5 years ago, I would have. I think that would have been a concern in the past. I came up in the generation of online business owners where it was like more is more is more.
Totally.
You have your like 10x value stack that shows that your bonuses outweigh the cost of the thing. And I came up in that world, and that's like what was taught to me. But I had separately already been on a bit of a journey of, wait a minute. Actually, like my ability to help people get from A to B as quickly and easily and simply as possible is the value. And this supports that. And I'm someone as a consumer who like, if you show me I have to watch 3-4 hour videos, I will not be watching that. Like, they're just not a reality in which I will watch that. Like I will not sit in front of my computer. I have ADHD. Like it's impossible. Yep. But if you told me I had to watch or listen to, you know, some 5-10 minute segments while I'm out on my walk, while I'm out getting groceries, I'm going to do that. And so like, I think that there's, I mean, not to like coach your audience or your listeners, but like,
feel free.
I think there's a really big perspective shift of what is actually valuable and really connecting with what your people actually need and actually have to have access to get to the result or the transformation that you're offering. And it probably isn't more is more is more.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think it took me a while to get there. Meaning, I think because we were all kind of in that more is more.
You were like really
bonus,
in it, Nora.
Really in it.
Like really in it.
I mean, I helped make a lot of money for other people to do it, right? Like, and it worked. And, you know, I will say now, I'm a little surprised at the visceral reaction I have to logging into something like an LMS. And I feel bad saying that. And it's the truth. It's like, where the hell is the URL? Because I don't know what platform this thing is on.
Don't remember who I bought it from even. Like,
no idea.
The person.
Can find it in my inbox. And then it's like, okay, and then I finally find it. What is the password? Did I put it in LastPass? Have I even logged in? Because I don't really know. So then I'm like, well, I guess I can forget my password and then just go through that. So now I'm like,
Which
all right,
email
let's do
address
this
did I
again.
use?
No, yeah,
And then
maybe I
have
used
the
it.
thing where it says you can't use an old password, and you're just like,
Yeah, I'm like, okay, great.
Or-
Now I'm not going to remember this.
Or it's a Thrivecart account and it like auto like loads other people's things and it's all
Yes.
oh my death to me.
Yes, it is that. And so you're right. It's about like, content I don't use is not valuable. Content I don't consume is not valuable. And so I think getting really, I don't know, like realistic with myself and honest with myself and knowing that ease and convenience is going to be valuable to me because it's going to be a lot more likely that I'm actually going to. And if I had every course I ever bought on my phone with me all the time, the likelihood that I'm actually going to look at it is a lot higher than going through the like, wait, what was that again? And then wait, that person, did they move platforms? And did they email me about that? Because I didn't see it. Now they were on Circle and then they went to Thinkific and then they went to Kajabi. And I'm like, I don't even know where it is anymore. And then they emailed me about downloading the content in a zip file, which I was never going to do. This happens. I agree with the understanding what truly is valuable. And it's not just all the things, it's the thing you're actually going to use. And that to me is what, and I know we're biased, like Lindsay and Derek and I are very biased because obviously we, created this product and we're very like audio is convenient for us.
Yeah.
Man, and the personal side, I do have a very visceral reaction to be like, man, I had to log in and make a thing of this now versus just hitting play and being able to walk around the family room or something. Like it's a bigger deal than it sounds like it should be, but it is.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's so many examples of it if you look outside of just like education products, right? But there's a reason that audiobooks are so popular. It's because like we can listen on the go, like we're doing stuff. And even if you are someone like me who's really on this journey of like slowing down and doing less or whatever, I'm still doing enough that like I don't want to go sit in front of my computer. I still want it to just be like there accessible to me. And yeah, I think that's been the biggest sort of, I think, feedback that I've gotten is like that people really appreciate that. And I don't know, I think if anyone's struggling with it, I always use this example and I use the word boundaries, but this maybe doesn't apply as like a boundary, but you'll hear the idea and you'll get it. If something is beneficial to me, I hold the belief that it can be mutually beneficial to someone else. Like it's not selfish. So like an example I use when I talk about this with my clients is there's a reason I don't do calls before 11 a.m. I'm not a human before 11 a.m. It is not of service for me to try to coach you and to listen to you before 11 a.m. because I'm not functioning. I'm not like the brain isn't there yet. And so it's a boundary, but it's also in the highest service of us all, right? I know that we're not talking about boundaries necessarily, but I think that same idea applies here. There's a reason that I'm called to create an audio, and I have to believe that it's actually for the benefit of us all. And I have found, at least in my world, for my clients and customers, it is,
Yeah. I think following those nudges are huge in business. It's like those little breadcrumbs that it's just like, wait a second, if I like this or if it's benefiting me in this way. And with business, like it's, there's going to be the adamant person that like 100% wants videos and all the things and actually goes through the content. I know those people are out there.
Yeah.
They're a rare breed, but there are people that go through the content and do the work. No, but seriously though, it's like that kind of nudge, I guess, is like super valuable in business. And I would want to say too to the listeners out there, if you're like, well, I can't move all my things. Oh my gosh. Because I think sometimes people listen to this podcast, they're like, shit, I have to launch 18 podcasts. This is too much, and now we're like telling you can move platforms, which is no easy feat. I'll say this. I just bought something literally yesterday from a good friend. I love her content. And she makes very pretty learning management sites, but she's also very clear on like where things are. And I don't actually feel overwhelmed signing into her stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. As long as I'm on top of it. And I like know that I'm going to a good person that has good content. I think that also helps. I'm not like against them entirely. And especially when the person's like a tech walkthrough person. So that's what she is. And I bought something and I was like, oh yeah, I have a couple of her other courses, right? And I'm looking and I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of do want to do that. And like I open it and there's this boundaried like thing that says subscribe to the private podcast. And I'm like, yes, she's a Hello Audio user. I know this. And like the second I hit it, and maybe we'll have her come on and talk about how she designs her learning platform, because I think that is a question people have. Like, where do I tell people about the podcast if they're coming into the learning platform? because she doesn't auto send it. That I did want to say that. Usually we recommend auto sending it. Some people don't. She could have auto sent it when I first originally bought it. Because remember, this is an old product I have of hers. So if she's coming on and is going to say otherwise, we'll see. But either way, she has a form that you can sign up. So it sends it. So that's connected to Hello Audio. We send the email on her behalf. Right before this call, I'm like, boom, I know exactly where it is. And you know what? I'm probably going to forget about it for a little while. But the beautiful thing is the way I have my podcast app set up. It's like I'm at the gym or I'm in, a driving mode or whatever. It's like sometimes I have public podcasts that I like want to binge and get through. And sometimes I have people's private podcasts and content. I know that there's a course waiting for me there that I can tap into. And I think everyone has experienced that, right? You're driving and then like you're up to date on the crime podcast that you're listening to. It's like, what do I listen to next, right? And it's if you have a bunch of people's content there, you're going to pick it and be like, oh yeah, I do want to launch a YouTube channel this year. That is top of mind right now. Boom, I'm listening to that private podcast. And like, I don't have to think. I don't have to try to find something else. And I think that's what people aren't realizing about how powerful podcasting is. And like having your audio content in a podcast player is. It's like you're right next to, I've been listening to Money for Couples. I've talked about this several times. Ramit Sethi. Binging some of these stories, listening to other people's problems makes me feel a little good. Better, right? But I'm binging it and it's like, I get past one and I'm like, there's only so much money drama that you can listen to from other people that I'm like, I need to like move myself forward, right? I need a little bit of a command, right? What am I going to listen to next? And I have this private podcast I bought or this summit that like aired months ago that I see. And I'm like, oh yeah, I clearly put that in my player. Cause let me tell you, Lindsay, like, I have the opportunity to subscribe to a lot of private podcasts. I see people's stuff come through, and so I have discretion around what I put in there, but like, I was like, oh yeah, I totally want to read that. That was like, or listen to that. That was something that was on my like learning thing or like on my goal list. Right. And so, yeah, sometimes I forget those private podcasts are in there, but the app I have has folders and stuff. So I can go and it's, I feel like learning something or I feel like binging something, or a lot of times I'm listening to people that are coming on the show. Like if I've come across them, that kind of thing. So anyways, random ramblings from Lindsay, as many of you have possibly heard before.
It's there. It's like,
it's in the same place.
You're already in the motion. Like you're already like committed to listening to something and it's right
correct
there.
And like I'm at the gym, I'm not going to be like, I could be that person listening to TikTok. Like I've seen them and I'm like, what are you doing? But it's got to be audio. And when you're driving, it's not like you're like YouTube, like as if YouTube knows what I actually want to watch next most of the time. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like there's the format you're saying of like the format and the function of it. It's like that is, I don't know, literally everything. And back to Nora's concept of it's not worth it if it's not consumed. And so here you have a kind of go-to place that your stuff could be waiting for them, because that is not how someone looks at Kajabi or Thinkific or whatever platform they're using. They're not like, oh, like what Kajabi course have I not binged? Let me log in and check. I've never even thought that in my life. I think that's like the first time I've ever said that out loud. That's like a pretty good realization, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I think and maybe this isn't fit for all types of businesses and all types of like services and niches and everything, but I think like the idea that like I know that someone's listening to my work, my ideas, my whatever, when they're like cooking dinner, like there's like a level of like connection that's much deeper than when they're like, oh, I just gotta cram in watching this course for 30 minutes between my calls. Like that's not, and maybe that doesn't matter if you're doing like super hyper like tech tutorials or whatever, but for my work, like that connection's really important. And so I
would say it matters for like 98% of people's content.
Yeah.
And maybe even more than that, because I used to talk about this a lot. Like my previous life, I was a teacher. I've talked a lot about this. I was a professor, and the emotional state that your learner in is actually really important for learning. So this is key, right? Which is why we have IEPs, which is why bonkers that kind of stuff is on the chopping block. But paying attention to what our learner is going through and like their personal lives, all of that comes into the classroom. People like to pretend it doesn't. My dissertation is literally on this. But anyways, now we're tapping into like old Lindsay work stuff. But it's true though, like a calm, like a nervous system that is relegated, like this is really important stuff. You know that, right? I think most people, maybe they haven't studied that kind of stuff before, but they've felt it, right? When you don't feel good, like you don't feel safe, not because of your teacher or whatever, maybe it's something happening at home. Maybe it's, whatever. That stuff is huge and completely impacts learning, is likely the cause of lots of lower test scores in low income areas. Like, I mean, the research is out there, folks.
Yeah.
And so zoom out to something that's a little less foundational in like, education or whatever, but it's in the digital learning space. We're like, furthering our education in a different way. Like it matters for us too. It matters for us as adults. You don't grow out of that. And being in a space where you're like, oh, this person gets me. I feel connected to this teacher. I feel calm when I'm whatever. It's like, it wasn't even you doing that. It was literally just the format and the accessibility that you gave them. You opened up something else in them that like other educational formats and systems, and potentially even teachers in that case too, did not. And I think that actually is a lot more important than you're giving it weight for, because I think it's beyond just like people doing energetic work or hypnosis or nervous system rewiring stuff, just stuff like that, right? Emotional regulation. But I think it's everybody, because I actually think I've said this before too, like even somebody who teaches ads and Facebook, which is literally the most frustrating looking platform to like sign into ever. And people have to teach that shit. Good luck. However, that is one of the early things that made Hello Audio what it is I had ads course that I ripped and put into this as early testing. And it was like, yeah, no, I wasn't an ads manager when I was listening to it. But you know what it showed me? It like gave me some scaffolding for when I actually did sit down and go, oh yeah, I remember Kaitlyn talking about, oh, this is what she was looking at. I wasn't so like anxious. And so even the tech people, even the people that are full-blown walkthroughs, you'd be surprised at the way you can take down that. It's basically like a low risk presentation of the material that actually feels very high risk for someone, especially when it's around people's money, like with ads, right? So we're talking about something that's like, can be very triggering for people. So it's like, why not bring that content down a little bit? So in fact, like maybe that's even the other way of saying this, like that needs it more in some respects because of the feeling that some of that kind of content can give people. So I think some of it was so obvious. We had a woman on who does like grief counseling. It's like, oh yes, that 100% makes sense. Or people that have gone through really tragic things. Yeah, audio makes sense. And so people like think those are the only people that need that kind of stuff. But I think like it's more all of us than you think.
Yeah. No, I love that perspective. I mean, selfishly, I'm like, I'm hitting my ethos even more. I'm even more thinking right now. But also, I think it totally makes sense. And I'm just thinking about, the actual like stress of having multiple windows open and trying to click around and trying to make sure you're like in real time with them versus like the relaxed nature that you could approach something with, and just how much easier it is to like listen and absorb and not feel like we can't multitask. And so it's like, no, you just focus on the words, focus on what you're hearing, learning, absorbing, and that be that.
And there's also like, I think you see the win at the end. You're like, cool, the ad's built. Okay, I see where I'm going. Now I'm going to go in and try, because that's scary, right? And like that like goal outcome thing. I'm the type of learner who it's like, give me all the content all at once and then I'll start doing stuff. And I know, I just like that outcome that like, there's the instant gratification. I haven't done anything, but I feel smarter. And that's a thing too. But I'm more likely to take action, right? Like, because I've listened to it versus the person who's looking at this thing that they have to sit down at a computer and like, how much more am I going to procrastinate because I don't really want to do the thing ahead of me, where I think audio, just turn it on and go. And then you're like, oh yeah, I know why I turned this on. You kind of have to get yourself in that mood too sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I totally love that. I've said this story, but I unfortunately don't remember any of the actual things that I learned to like support the story. But in school, like in high school, I was really, really good at math. And when I got to calculus, I remember whatever we were learning, it suddenly made sense, like all the things that we had learned coming to it. And I was like, you should have led with this. Like you should have led with the big picture. Like you should have told us like why we were doing geometry and trigonometry and whatever else, because this makes sense now. Like now I'm more interested in those things that I was naturally good at, but I didn't really have the context for. And I was just reminded of that when you were talking of like, I want the whole picture first. I want the context. And then I'll like go in and do some of the like nitty gritty things. Like that just is how my brain works as well.
Fun. I didn't know this was going to be a learning episode. I love that. Clearly I get excited about it, but no, I like nerding out on this kind of stuff.
I will say, like, all of this applies to learning and also marketing. It's the same thing. It's the same. So like, because I had created training programs for corporate, right? So similarly, like adult learners, like, and all the training I typically created was like to get people to do something, right? So we're like change management, behavioral change. Like, so not unlike all the coaches and consultants that are like, every time you look at what is your course or training program supposed to, it's like usually a behavioral outcome is what or like habit, establishing new habits, whatever that looks like for your niche. So in corporate, it was similar. It's like we had to get people, it's like, why do you think we invested in taking everyone off site? Because we needed to get everyone away from their damn desks, like all of that thing. And the same thing applies to now looking at it in the marketing space, like try to get someone to make a buying decision. Right. And it's like, this is why we have a lot of users that have a ton of success with lead magnets on audio, with launch content on audio, is because the connection is going back to what you had said earlier. And like the environment and now the situation we've created in terms of that listening experience absolutely contributes to their ability to make a decision, to change a behavior, to do the things that the content is ultimately designed for them to do. So yeah, I mean, it works across so many things for all the same reasons. And I love that we can do this. And I mean, we both nerd out on this stuff too, but I'm like, yep. And it's all about psychology and it all comes as like, it's a big deal. And I love audio for that reason, because it does allow you to connect with someone on a level that does absolutely impact the outcomes that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, yes, business owners and making money and whatever else, but that's got to be the driver underneath it all. Is your stuff actually making an impact? Like, and that's part of that.
Why are we doing this? Back
It's true.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground. This has been really fun. Do you have any private podcast feeds you're sitting on that you're like, what else could I add? What else could I play with?
What you mean, like for me?
Some ideas that are percolating, something like that, or
yeah. Well, so I have something coming out. It'll be out by the time this podcast goes out, but I have something coming out that, because of just like kind of like the state of everything, a lot of people right now are just like, I'm like under so much pressure. And so as I'm doing a lot, like a daily sort of thing, and a lot of my work ends up being kind of like these daily things, which obviously like someone's not going to log into Kajabi every day to listen to a couple of minutes of something. It's much more fitting for this sort of type of vehicle. So next week I'll put out this thing where it comes out every single day. It's like a quick thing they can drop into, a quick thing that they can help, do in real time with me listening. Like, there's not like listen and then go. It's like, no, we're doing it together. And then hopefully by the end of the week, they find that they feel a little bit lighter, a little bit less pressure. So I'm really excited about that. That's like the closest thing on the horizon. And there's some really big ideas coming in the near future, not near future, distant future, because it's really big, just around having just like a really big library of resources for all the different aspects of my work. And so there might be things around pressure, and there might be things around money mindset, and there might be things around self-trust, but all kind of living in one hub, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. The digital library, the digital audio library.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. That's fantastic. You love that idea.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to bring it to life.
That'll be really cool. All right. So we asked this question of all of our guests. Okay. And that question is, if there was a private podcast with your life's musings, what would it be called?
Well, there was a private podcast with my life musings. What would it be called? Something around the word like curious, like curiosities, or the curious mind, or something that's curiosities. Because I think a lot of my work has stemmed from me just being a pretty curious person and wanting to understand why and how and what makes people tick and all that kind of stuff. So something around curiosities.
That's awesome. I love that.
Tracks.
That's
tracks.
Cool. Yeah. Right. That feels right.
That. That's a good one to like kind of like put people on the spot.
Some people are like, oh no, it's my book title that I'm going to come out with one day in the future. Like, there's definitely things people have been sitting on.
Oh wait, let me do that. I probably call it self-study.
Nice.
Thank you for giving me that cue with the book.
You could do the byline, like the curious mind of blah, blah, blah. There you go.
Yeah. There we
go. Love that. Stay tuned, folks, for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back, because I assume you'll do something with audio when you.
Oh yeah, exclusively.
Well, that was super fun. Thanks so much for stopping by. I can't wait to hear more, get more, updates from your business and all the things. This has been super fun.
Thank you.
And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard. So let's turn the volume up. Until next time.